to this second Madaxeman podcast of 2025. As usual, I'm joined by a gang of itinerant reprobates. This week, or this month, I suspect, we're actually talking about competitions in Burton, in Plymouth, and in Beachhead in Bournemouth, as well as doing the usual painting and gaming chat, and then moving on with the return of a well-loved feature. Yes, Andy's quiz for big fans of anybody who's a fan of weird French techno music. That's coming up in this one as well. So get ready, sit back, unplug your ears, and listen to this month's Madaxeman podcast.
This means war.
We're back for two podcasts in 2 and a bit months, or possibly 2 months, which is miraculous pace, really, isn't it? And I think the way that we're achieving this is by assembling a random cast of anybody that we can kind of scrape up. No offense to you four, but just to kind of stuff the podcast shelves full of wargamers, really, to get some conversation out there onto the internet airwaves. And so we've got Dave from the podcast. There he is, still doing some painting down there in the corner. Hello. Yeah. We've got Gordon, there you are as well. Hello,
Peace
Gordon. We've got Mr. Fry all the way from Bristol, and you're landing aircraft at Bristol Airport with your headset on. As
I am indeed. The background noise and the lack of a microphone on my aged and decrepit laptop requires.
That could be it. It looks pretty cool. And then we've got Mr. Case from your. I'm just trying to wonder if I can zoom in and see what wonderful collection of intellectual books that you've got there. Or are they just all sharp novels or something like that?
They look like DVDs.
They're a right old mix of a lot of Conan books.
Oh,
right.
Nice.
And the official history of World War One in about 6 volumes that I inherited from my grandfather. So it's the 1920s official history.
Well, was he there? So I presume he was there, or no?
Yeah. Well,
Can you build a trench out of it?
He just missed it.
Okay. Spot of luck then.
Yeah, and a lot of Harry Sidebottom novels.
Okay.
You've read his Warrior of Rome stuff. Very good.
Okay. Intriguing. Good. Yeah. Well, I think we're in a kind of slightly random order because we don't have the benefit of your attendance all the time. Mr. Case, real life does get in the way. So what we're going to talk about is what we've been painting, what we've been collecting, and what we've been playing, really, because since we last returned from the depths of southern Spain, some of us have managed to do, well, that's Gordon, isn't it? Managed to do 3 tournaments, which is quite spectacular. And some of the rest of us have done 2, and some of us done 1. So in vaguely reverse order, I think it is. The most recent one is the one that some of you guys have just here's Simon. Simon's arriving from down under. But it's some which some of you did and I didn't do, which this last weekend was Burton in the land of beer. And I guess the normal first question with Burton is, how grim was the drive up? How grim was the weather? And did you manage to find any pubs that were not about to close through lack of attendance, or did you find good ones this time? What was the pub and transit situation?
So the drive up was remarkably easy for once. We left just a little later, and so the M1 was very painless, and the Cooper was in excellent form. We had the usual vast array of craft ales, and of course the genuine, authentic, enormous pork pies.
Oh,
and actually the weather was rather mild compared to recent years. And in fact, all in all, it was a very chilled and fun weekend with Simon's usual excellently organised curry on Saturday night.
Hooray! Excellent stuff. Good. Simon, are you literally still cooking? I think you're on mute. Yes, you're still cooking and eating as we are at the moment. I can see you with the what's it on? Unless that's a painting bib or something.
Sorry about that. I've got a veggie burger with various other things, and Rachel's got a chicken breast with blue cheese and pancetta.
God, we're getting into all sorts of stuff on them. I suppose Alicante, we did do quite a lot of food, and we have just talked about pork pies, and there's wine as well. So that's there. So where did you stay this time in Burton? Because isn't the Travelodge now kind of something else?
It's back.
It's
back.
now reopened.
The Travelodge is back.
Except it's not called a travel lodge; it's a go-to.
Is that even cheaper than a Travelodge, or have they made it more sophisticated and upmarket?
It's
now?
more
Expensive, I thought, wasn't it?
Yeah, so it was slightly more expensive. It's apparently an Ibis hotel chain.
Okay.
You can't book it through the Ibis budget chain. You can only book it directly to GoTo or through booking.com or whatever like that. They spent 2 years renovating the building, and for the life of me, all I could see was a few columns were painted red, and that was it.
They've changed the plumbing was changed.
Oh, what?
For the better?
It was much better than it used to be. That's not saying much, but I mean, for the price, it
was absolutely fine.
It was
yes,
fine.
absolutely, yeah.
The temperature control on the shower wasn't great.
Yeah.
As a wargaming hotel, it met the 3 key needs. It was near a pub, near the venue, and it was cheap, and the cockroaches were clean. After that,
that's good then. Excellent. And was that Hobbit pub across the way from? Is that gone? Or was that rebranded?
It's still there. The weighbridge is still there. It's no longer called the Hobbit or whatever, but it closed at 9:30, which was right when we arrived.
Oh God! Oh, okay then. Cool. And how was
the Coopers instead?
Excellent. Well, if you're going to go in the Coopers, you're going to the Coopers. And was the Coopers in that period at which it was full of really cool hipsters, or was it just full of old men?
It was actually on Friday night. It was almost deserted.
Okay.
Apart from us, and then on Saturday lunchtime, it was almost deserted as well. It was fairly busy Saturday night, but not. I think the last time we were there, Burton Albion were playing at home, and I think that made a big difference.
Okay. All right. That brings out all the hipsters then.
But the beer was excellent, very cheap, very reasonable, the usual sort of thing.
And back in the town hall again. And was it a packed hall? How packed did it get with all the different things going on?
Dean and Wayne were saying that this year there were about 4 or 5 teams down on the ADLG side. The Western Fog AM players, we saw Roddick. He came out of nowhere twice. I think you had to get more beer. I
think they keep them in a little side room somewhere, don't they?
Basically, yeah.
That's where they were. They were in the back room. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So I saw them scurrying out every now and then. But Dean was saying that the numbers were a little down from last year.
Okay. Well, yeah, I guess it's always a difficult one, and it just sort of sneaks up, and it's kind of difficult. They do need to tell people about it a bit more, I think, is a possibility. But that could be rectified in the future, I think. Cool. So how did we all? So there were. I'm looking at 3 teams here, aren't I? So Gordon, you're half a team. Simon, you're half a team, and Dave and Richard, you're like a team between you. And you two actually think about army choice and stuff in advance. So there's probably some thought to explain there about what your theory was and whether it worked or not in terms of what you tried to do.
Richard insisted that he'd pulled the weight on the decision on the armies in previous years, and it's my turn to actually come up with an army. So I based it on the fact I went on holiday to Thessaloniki last year in October and visited Pella, the Macedonian capital. So we took Alexandrian Macedonian.
Wow, proper
which is
old
not
school then.
Alexander the Great.
No, the pre-interesting one.
Yeah, so it's basically Philip II at Chironeer. Yes, Richard?
Yeah.
So it was, I mean...
So do you not feel frustrated through lack of interesting toys? Or is it just...
Well, actually, we were inspired by the complete whooping that you gave me at Warfare. And so we said, actually, that here's a list that has a lot of pike and a lot of medium sword two-handed weapon, but it also has cataphracts and elite light foot and a strategist. Surely we can do something interesting with that.
Yeah.
So inspired by both you and Dave's holiday, we came up with a list.
So how many pike did you jam into this list at 300 points?
I think there were 13.
13.
14. 13.
And then a big blob of Thracians as well, I guess.
And some companions, 5 companions, not as many as I would normally take with a Macedonian army.
And cataphracts in that list?
No, there was no cataphracts.
No cataphracts, okay. The impact cavalry then, or something like that?
Impact cavalry companions, yeah.
And did you do it properly and field them all in a huge big block of companions, or did you
there were
penny
4
packet them?
companions in a group together with a couple of Prodromoy lancers, light horse lancers, and an Alexander who was fairly well behaved. He only died once, maybe twice.
Out of 4. That's good. You put him in the front then. You were prepared to commit him.
Oh yeah, it was good fun. The theory was it was kind of supposed to be biblical, but then we sort of realised it was going to be elephants or cataphracts. We thought this is an army which functions against all of those.
Yeah,
and I actually really enjoyed playing with it. Actually,
me too.
Did you? Oh, he says just to get that one in there. So what, Richard? What was the sort of setup? Talk me through the first game. Who did you have to fight, or the first couple of games? Was there too many beers? Can you not remember?
Guys, it's Dave from the podcast, guys.
Oh, right. Oh, okay.
I can't remember quite which way around it was, but we faced one army which was a 3 Kingdoms Chinese with a lot, maybe 12 or so heavy swordsmen polearm, and a lot of elite impact cavalry. So a bit similar to us, except we had pike and they had the heavy foot polearm, and basically we just trundled forward and rolled over them. They put up a very valiant resistance, but at the end of the day, the extra point in the factors of the pike told often enough that we won.
Okay.
They had a flank march which didn't appear quite quick enough.
Yeah, that's a lot. If you're throwing pike at people, it can get into contact quite quickly, can't it, on an open table?
Yes.
Okay. And then you went to the Coopers for lunch. Pork pie, I hope.
Yeah,
absolutely. Pork pie.
Good.
Bass, yeah.
Pie and bass, and then afternoon game.
No, that was the afternoon game.
That was the afternoon game. Okay.
So the morning game was John and Charlie. What were they using?
Must have been a good pint of bass or something like that.
No,
I believe they were using Achaemenids.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Yes.
They
won the initiative. Their initiative was 5 and ours was 3, but we somehow won the initiative and we defended in the mountains, didn't we?
Yes.
And that deprived them of any terrain, which was not good for them because they had Sparabara and Immortals and things like that.
14.
Oh my God. So you sort of marched into those behind a screen of skirmishes and that was it.
Yeah.
Well, that's the one thing which is really outstanding in our games that weekend, was the skirmish. Our Lightfoot skirmishers all were elite.
Wow.
Cretans or Agranians, and I think we lost maybe 2 or 3 in total in the entire competition.
Yeah, well, they are tough to kill, aren't they? They're tough on things. All right. So Gordon, you clearly know what that army was as well. Did you play it as well, or were you?
It was the first army that we faced. We lost both our first games, and I'm going to pass the blame for this entirely to Dave, the absent one, because it was his turn to choose the army, and he said, 300 points. Obviously, it can be full of elephant armies, so we take the best elephanty army that we can drum up with the most elephants and the least other things.
Yeah.
And it proceeded to lose its first 2 games.
Right. Was that the Tamils? Was that your Tamils? Is that the impact foot Tamils or something like that? Or
we are early Tamils, so we have impetuous medium swordsmen, but we also have 3 Royal Guardsmen who are impact.
Okay.
The theory was we just charge forward and our skirmishers last just long enough to get us to whoever the opponents are.
Yeah.
Didn't really work that bit. So unlike only 2 Agrianians dying, we lost 10 skirmishers, I think, to shooting.
Oh my God. So your army's broken before it gets into combat.
Yes. Oh no, we're still nowhere near broken, but
no.
I think when we faced the Achaemenids, they were a few points off breaking, but we got there first. Same with who came next. Oh no, it was the first one was against the Three Kingdoms players. We misunderstood which army they had, so we put rather too many medium foot and bowmen in front of where the impact cavalry turned up.
Oh my God. Oh dear.
The plan then was, well, I sacrifice myself whilst Dave trundles forward to victory against all the others. And he failed to do that.
Right. Okay. Well, it's good to be able to blame him if he's not here then. That's really, really excellent stuff.
He doesn't even take any credit for the 2 victories the following day.
No, that goes without saying. If you don't show up, you're not going to take the credit at all.
People's.
No, indeed.
So we killed somebody called Alexander the Great, stomped all over him, despite losing 3 generals in 1 turn in that game. He still managed to win, and that left 1 general still fighting. I mean, that was the key to the army: was generals fight at the first opportunity, and they don't need an elephant.
And they're mounted on their elephants, aren't they, Gordon?
3 of them are compulsorily tied to their elephants with chains. They tended to die. I think if there was an award for the most generals lost as opposed to killed by somebody, we would easily have won that.
Easily have had it. Okay. And Simon, what about you? How was your first day?
Oh, it was a long 7 hours.
Okay.
So so I was playing with Dave Hutchby, and in our brains we're thinking this pure would be biblical. So we designed the New Kingdom Egyptians.
Kudos.
Yeah. So we went proper biblical, and then rocked against all these cataphracts and other scary things. So we got absolutely eviscerated. So we in game 1 we faced Baroni and Paul Johnson.
Dawson.
Sorry, Dawson. Yeah.
Same difference.
Some northerner Paul, and we got absolutely eviscerated. So I think in the end we managed to get 10 points off them.
What were they playing with? Sorry, Simon?
They were playing with Achaemenid Persians.
Oh, they were the Persians, right? Okay.
Different Persians.
There were 2 Achaemenids, and they were the one of them.
Yeah, they managed to outplay us, outtrain us, outthink us, and everything that they could possibly do. We got absolutely trashed. So their armies pretty much went sideways, turned straight through that way, and we got absolutely done. So in the second game, we managed to get to a winning draw against the name escapes me. It was like Greg and Mark. So guys who've only played 1 competition game since Burton.
With Sassanids.
Sassanids, yeah. So they'd only played 1 game since the year before. So they weren't particularly experienced or au fait
with the rules, yeah.
But they still, In the final bound, when they called time, it was either going to be a mutual destruction or a win for either side, because both of us, with 35 or 38 elements, we were 3 off breaking.
Oh, carnage everywhere.
Yeah, we got. Yeah, so I think we worked out between the 2 of us. Every single element was either involved in combat or melee in every single round from round 3.
Okay, yeah. So that's wearing out the dice, then, isn't it? For sure.
Yeah. The dice were well used.
Good.
Then we played Bob Amy in round 3 and got absolutely handed to us, because you'd think with Impetuous Swordsman...
There's a pattern here, isn't there? Yeah.
Yeah. So you think with Impetuous Swordsman, the Swordsman had 2-handed weapon, and Impact Swordsman, with overlaps, you should be able to do a pike army. So here they had Seleucids. Yeah, it didn't go that well.
No.
So, in the first round of combat, we lost 6 out of 8 combats.
And you just don't come back from pikes against that, do you?
It just went downhill rapidly from there.
Yeah.
So we got absolutely eviscerated. So by the end, we were scraping the barrel. So it was
scary.
Yeah. It was good fun and all that. It was a very good learning experience. But my God, it was brutal. Don't bring a chariot to a cataphract game.
I was going to say I obviously I wasn't there. It sounds like the extension of the period outside of biblical. It just doesn't work, folks, for the biblical armies, or maybe I'm wrong.
It made a big difference because for those of us who went for a purely biblical army, we got absolutely eviscerated. For those people who designed their army more on cover all the options, like the archers, which effectively is a indeterminate period army, because it's basically cavalry, infantry, cavalry, whatever like that. They did very, very well. Very well. The elephants had fun, but against the mounted armies, they got torn to pieces. So it would have been nicer if they had made the periods tighter rather than go from 3000 BC to 500 AD, because as we all know, biblical armies can't play against anything from basically the rise of Greece onwards. They just don't work particularly well.
Richard, what's your thoughts there?
I thought Dave and I discussed it a bit, and our thought was you can stretch it to maybe 350 BCE, because the heavy spearmen and the earlier sort of unarmored heavy swordsmen, the biblical can still fight quite reasonably, but as soon as you start getting pike, and then by 200 when you start getting cataphracts, that's really a very different mix. And a couple of the biblical have the kit to do it, but you can't. You shouldn't include the vast majority of those armies beyond 350 was our conclusion.
I think there was a fear from the organisers that if we did just biblical in South American, then it would be a heavy chariots fight off with lots of Assyrians. But I think at 300 points, it's still an interesting.
Points is a different game, isn't it? Yeah. Because you can still only get 6 in the Assyrians, so that doesn't cover that much of the table. And I think
but can't the Chinese, can't the Zhao get something like 27 or something stupid? No, not quite, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, 15 at 300 points.
Oh, 15, sorry, yeah.
But I think one of the differences in version 4 is because the heavy chariots are no longer +2 versus mounted, they're only +1. All of the armored light chariot bow are as good, if not better, than the heavy chariot impact. You just use very different tactics.
Very much so, yeah.
There's a lot of viable armies, and if you stretch it to 350 or even 480, you get all of the armored Greek spearmen, who are a very nasty foil to impact heavy chariots. So I think that you might get a lot of heavy chariots, but there's at least 2 things that can defeat them. So I think it isn't automatic that you would just bring heavy chariots.
Yeah. I think that Chinese army is a bit of an outlier, though, in that even if it might not be super effective, it looks like it's super effective, and it's got a bit of a one-dimensional play style. So I think by allowing that with all of the chariots, you could end up with a lot of those, which then has knock-on effects about the way everything else kind of gets put together.
Yeah, so it's an incredibly hard army to use. I've tried it quite a number of times at competitions, and you end up with chariots scattered all over the scenery, staring at fields that they've been led into, unable to maneuver ever again because you don't have enough command control, and they don't listen. And its medium foot is quite vulnerable. Although the fact that they've got missile support is good, some of them, and certainly the polearm is much better. But overall, it's not a killer army any more than the Hittites are, because whilst they can have
it's very like
more chariots, they've got very poor foot to go with them.
Yeah. they're a bit like the early feudal French, you know, lots of impetuous knights and not much else. And you just have to learn how to take, if you haven't got them yourself, you learn how to deal with them.
Yeah.
That's what we found with the New Kingdom Egyptians, because I think we had 35 elements, of which 18 were chariots, and by the end of every game, the chariots were scattered across the entire table, all individually running around trying to avoid stalk somebody or trying to do something and all that. And even with strategists, 2 brilliant and a competent, we were running out of pips left, right, and centre because the whole army had scattered into this complete chaos and all that. You know, granted, by that time, our medium foot command had been eviscerated, so that, you know, it's just chariots left and Lightfoot running for the hills and all that. But yeah, you do get absolutely pulled to pieces.
All right, well, coming back, so Dave and Richard, we've heard about Simon's day 1 and day 2, and Gordon, you said that you did much better in day 2, and you're not letting Dave take the credit. But what about
what we learned was actually very valuable and applies to all competitions we go to. It's a good idea to have a trial, preferably with both of you, rather than just going in with a list and thinking, I wonder what kind of terrain might suit this.
Yeah.
And by game 3, you're actually getting the hang of it, and you've got an idea of what you want to achieve. So that in our final game, we felt it was working well because we were in combat in the second turn. We'd killed our first pikeman by the end of the second turn.
Wow. Oh, okay.
Yeah. And
haven't you played that army before, essentially?
Yeah, variants of it, but you forget.
Not that one.
Yeah. I mean, this particular one, no, I hadn't, but something similar. Yeah. And we're treating these 4 games at Burton as our real practices for taking pretty much the same army to Villefontaine in March.
Oh, right. Okay. Yes. So Dave and Richard, then your day 2. I guess the big question is, how did that go? And did you end up getting close to a place?
So the morning we faced Darrell and Harrison with Sassanids.
Yes.
And that was very tough because we ended up with a steep wooded hill right in the middle of the table that they were holding with Lightfoot javelins and Dailami. And although we had troops that could fight them in a flat forest, we didn't fancy charging uphill at that.
Yeah.
So we had sort of lots of fencing at that, while our pike ground forward being shot at by elite heavy cavalry bow. So it ended up as a fairly bloody draw because we managed to contact their cataphracts, and it was a very good game, but we needed another hour or 2 to get a result.
Right. Okay, just that one piece of terrain in the middle just screwed it for everybody.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it was the style of the 2 armies. We were a grind forward type army, and they were a fencing type army. So, unless you can pin that kind of army against something, which we couldn't on that table, in the time, you're often going to get to a draw. So that then led on to the afternoon game. And I had remembered what we were. Oh yeah, we were facing Gryco-Bactrian.
Okay.
Jesse and Steve Gryco-Bactrian, and that was a very. The terrain fell beautifully for us. A lot of the rough going was clustered on one side, and we were defending, so we could ambush some of our Thracians in a plantation, and the Agrianians on a plantation covered gentle hill. We lined up our 3 sort of hardest hitting commands out in the open, and we just slightly outnumbered them. And they had for some strange reason they had ended up with 6 elite light horse deployed against the plantations rather than deployed in the open.
Yeah.
So they kind of got boxed in. I mean, they stopped us coming out and looting the camp, but we just outpointed them in the open.
Okay.
And so our pike and impact cavalry beat their pike and cataphracts and elephants.
Okay,
So we ended up third.
Okay,
3
that's
points
good.
behind the guys who came second. So we just missed out on the silverware. And I think our conclusion is that the Pike Army is absolutely fantastic as long as your opponent has at least half their points in troops that can't evade.
Yeah, yeah. I can. That sort of sums up a lot of my experience with it as well.
I would also say that having that many pike made you more bulletproof to heavy cavalry bow than usual, because normally you just get mown down in the end by the heavy cavalry bow, but because we had more pike than we would normally have. I mean, we were facing, we would face 4 or 5 heavy cavalry bow with 6 pike, so we were getting across the table okay.
So what's the point?
And the elites to sit in front. Yeah,
I would say, what's the points difference? It's heavy cavalry bows. What, 14 if it's elite? Is it, or is it
13?
13 elite, and the pike are 12, aren't they?
Well, ordinary pike are 11.
Oh, sorry, I'm getting my points wrong. Yeah,
but I think the thing that makes the biggest difference is that those pike armies that can have quite a lot of elite light foot, you keep them close to the pike so nobody can get behind the light foot, and they are just so much more resilient to shooting, particularly if the enemy can only shoot with a single base at each light foot, and because otherwise so often, if you've got ordinary light foot, they're what drags your army down, because you lose the light foot, and then when he puts a wound on the pike, you've effectively taken 3 attrition, and that's what kills the army. So I think definitely, if I was going to do that kind of army, I would always choose those forces that can have a lot of elite light foot. Was our takeaway.
Yeah, actually, that was one of the things with my Swiss. I made sure that I had all 4 of the handgunners. That was almost kind of bizarrely the starting point of the list. It's like the 4 elite handgunners. I'm not downgrading any of those to go down to 200 points. It didn't work, but that's a different reason entirely. So, all right, then. But I think
at the end it was only like 10 points between first and third.
Okay.
So it was very
really tight then. Excellent, good. And did anybody actually take any pictures or know what the results are, or are they going to remain shrouded in mystery forever?
They were posted. Dean posted them. So,
oh right, posted them up in the room.
No, he's emailed them around to the players.
Okay.
Attachment.
All right. Well, if you can forward it on to me, I'll integrate them into the rankings so we can add them up if you want to be placed. You want that to be recorded. Good.
Do we know how many teams there were overall, folks? Or
there were 18 teams.
That's good.
Yeah.
So 36 in
36 people.
Yeah.
Still a good turnout. Cracking. Good. All right then. Well, I think that's covered up there, and we'll take a little break.
This means war.
Okay, then. Well, we're back, and what we're going to do now, this is really old school, isn't it? This is talking about what have we been up to in the last few weeks on the painting table. Dave, you're literally painting as we speak, and I think you've managed to navigate the mysterious Khorasan American shipping malarkey.
Yes.
And you're now painting some enormous 15mm figures or something.
Yeah, I've not been painting a lot recently, shall we say. My mojo disappeared for a bit, so I thought, but I went to Khorasan in America and bought some figures off him, and they're very nice medieval. His War of the Roses knights. I mean, I'm sort of refreshing some mounted knights for the very, very late period, and some foot knights because you can just need more foot knights.
Yeah,
no, they're great figures to paint up. I'm really enjoying painting them. They're very, very nice.
So are you using them as a War of the Roses army, or are you just using them as generic super late knights?
They're generic. They're generic.
Okay.
I mean, I'm painting them up as Burgundian French flags. I've got some flags off Damien at Donington, which are really nice flags on. I've literally just put some flags on some of the cavalry. The cavalry, the knights are huge, but I mean, my idea is that I'll have knights for early feudal Norman knights, middle knights with barding for the horses, cloth barding, and have some fully armoured late knights. Late knights. Yeah. That's the theory.
Late knights indeed.
Yeah.
Okay. And what are you doing? Is it black undercoat and dry brush, or is there a different technique? Or
no, black undercoats and then dry brush gunmetal. I'm actually using quite a lot of silver.
Yeah.
I mean, I followed this on the Khorasan website. Steve Dean, I think, painted the figures on the website, so I followed a bit of his model, and using more silver than I would normally do with the. But it's working quite well. But they're still quite dark, but they're coming out really well. I really like them.
Kind of good effect. And what is the Khorasan American shipping trick thing that is kind of alluded to on his website? Because it can, I guess, it sounds a little bit off-putting unless you know that it works.
You place the order with him, then he sends you a link through eBay.
Okay.
I'm not sure we should be saying this. I don't know if we've.
No, I think it's doing eBay loves the commission anyway, doesn't it?
Yeah. Through eBay, which means that I think the taxation and the import duties get done via the eBay.
Yeah. So it's eBay's global shipping program is the trick.
That's it.
Got it. Okay. No, that makes sense then. So it's eBay is dealing with all of that stuff and charging you the iOS numbers and whatever sort of secretly. Because when I've sold stuff on eBay, if you sell it to someone abroad, you ship it to eBay's UK office, then the other person pays. You don't see what the other person pays in postage. The buyer, eBay kind of works all that out. So. So they'll charge whatever it is.
They're still going to be done for some sort of import duty. You're just unaware of what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that coming from America into Britain is probably the best direction to go in, as long as you're not over some totally arbitrary figure like, I don't know, 110, 120 quid.
Yeah. Okay. So I think, though, the eBay thing might actually deal with they might incorporate the tax as well. Yeah. Possibly, but I might be making that up. I don't know.
I'm not sure. I mean, because I think they use the same arrangements as Etsy does, and I've been landed with some significant import duties from Etsy in the past.
We won't looking behind you. We won't ask what. We won't ask what. Looking behind you, we won't ask what you bought off Etsy.
Little brass people. Well, quite big brass people. Some of them.
Yes, I can see. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Okay. Let's go around. Richard, are you? We can see your paint table behind us, and I think this is all, unless you're doing microsurgery on somebody as we speak or something. A bit of brain science there. What are you up to at the moment? What's on the Richard painting table?
So I am finishing off all of the units of Norman / First Crusade that I got on the table. For Brixham.
Okay.
And of course, because the competition was coming up, I finished exactly those bases that I needed for that weekend. And all the other bases were all the other options that I had started on. I now have to finish. So just doing some.
So what figures are they? What manufacturer are they?
So they're quite a mixture, and they are mostly, I think, Essex. But they are some figures I bought in a bring and buy 20 years ago. Wow. And rather than start again, because they were okay.
Yeah.
But I just gave them, some of the silver was a bit bright, so I just gave everything a black wash. And then I said, well, what they really need is just new shields and new cloaks, because the rest of the figure, is
armor, isn't it? Yeah.
Fine. So I've just been focusing on that, just using the usual triple layer, particularly for the cloak, and quite a lot of black lining for the shield designs, just because that just makes
it makes them really pop, doesn't it?
If you look at the shields and things, they just pop so much better with a little bit of black. on the edge, rather than just using the white and the red if you put a bit of black in there. And then prettying up the bases with the usual thing and so on. So I'm hoping that project will be done soon, and I will go back to doing 28mm skirmish figures for a bit.
So which ones? What 28mm skirmish are kind of in the hopper and waiting, desperate to be done?
So just a vast collection of fantasy and Viking and other bits and pieces that have sat in my to be painted boxes for years, and I've decided it's their turn on the table.
Okay, actually, yeah, because I think I've kind of crossed over with you at the club, and you've been doing. Is it still Dragon Rampant, or is it something else that I saw you do?
There's two other rule sets that I've been giving a go. One is called Jackals, which is set in the adventurers are called Jackals because you can pick on the waste of society, but it's set in a sort of alternative 1200 BC. So you've got a sort of Egyptian type state and an Israel type state, and the Assyrians and the bad guys. But there's also a lot of mythos and magic. So the Foundry 28mm figures are perfect for it. So lots of boar tusk helmets and Dendra panoply armor and
so who down the club did everybody go, oh, we've all found about this, or was it someone went?
No, somebody said, I'm going to do this. Does anybody fancy joining in? And I didn't know much about it, and I did. And I thought, I've always fancied having, because it's kind of the era of Troy. So it's all of those. And the game mechanics are quite like that. So that's quite fun. And then there's another simple set called Sword Weirdos, which is based on a set called Space Weirdos. And again, the difference is it's not really a traditional role-playing game. It's more a role-playing skirmish game. So rather than very complicated, lots of dice rolling, the focus is to have one large combat event during the adventure where you get quite a lot of figures on. And Gary's done some beautiful illustrations to kind of lead you into this, and brings along a lot of great terrain. So that's been really, really fun.
Okay. Wow.
And I find it refreshes my brain for ADLG not to do it every week.
Of course, absolutely. Yeah, no, I think I will dip into other stuff.
This means war.
Mark, what about you? You've been have you been writing rules? Have you been doing?
I've been writing. Yes, I'm book writing at the moment. I've got my publishing deadline at the end of April, and it was fine up until the day before yesterday, and then my entire laptop collapsed. So let's not go there. I spent the last 2 days reloading everything and fighting Microsoft to get back my Office because I'm not a sort of an Apple sort of person. But anyway, let's just put that to one side. So, a lot of that. So that's the book on the Khmer. And I'm having a set of figures commissioned and to go with it, and that's quite fun. So
that'll be the first 28mm alternative to the irregular ones.
Yeah,
is that right?
Yeah. So and they're all being digitally sculpted. And I have to say that, after a bit of a twitch about a couple of weeks ago, because I hadn't seen anything from the sculptor for about 6 months, I sent him a rather stroppy email and got back 6 rather beautiful digital sculpts. And of course, I don't know if anybody's ever seen these, but they sort of arrive as a video link, and you then pop it open, and the things sort of turn on a 360-degree basis, and they look fab. So I can't, because I'm now on my phone because my laptop's packed up. Another time I'll be able to share some of these, actually, because it's an interesting process to go through with a sculptor. Partly because I know so much about the period, that and it's that thing.
you can get really picky. Do I actually want this particular 28mm figure to have its choker with its amulet, hanging from the choker, or is it just a 28mm figure and it's going to get lost? So so there's that aspect.
Making sure that it's got enough toes for Ian Speed to paint the right number.
Exactly, and also with the Khmer, and this is quite an interesting one. To me, it's about the different ethnic differences, and I mean, so many wargames figures don't do it, so they almost shy away from it. But when you look at the actual carved reliefs, the Khmer are really clear that this is what a Khmer looks like, and that's what a Siamese looks like, and that's what a Vietnamese looks, or a Chinese. So we're trying to get that into the sculpts without it looking caricature. And actually, Gareth, who's done the sculpting, has done a really great job. So I mean, maybe next time I'll be able to share some of those as well. If
that'd be interesting, because that whole caricature thing, I think I seem to remember, coming across something that it might have been. Was it some of the Warlord Games bolt action Japanese figures? The first set were kind of like,
you've got to be very careful. And I think because we're dealing with historical sculpts that do this representation, and they do it stunningly well. I mean, it's quite interesting. If you look at the sculpts, particularly of the Siamese troops, and you then look at pictures of ethnic Siamese, the sculpts look like them, and they look very different from ethnic Cambodians. I won't go into the detail, but so it's quite an interesting thing writing the book, and at the same time dealing with the sculptor. But also the sculptor is going through this process of learning. I mean, he's an excellent sculptor in sort of physical. I mean, he's done some absolutely stunning stuff. Stuff for Khorasan. I think he may have even done the knights that Dave is painting. I think they might be his. Wow. He's learning to do the digital process, and so I'm sort of sitting alongside him, watching him doing it, and he's experimenting and things. So that in itself is quite an interesting change in the hobby. I mean, we've seen these digital sculpts, the Museum Z range, for example, and we've all got different views on those. The fact that the same sculptor has turned out to be producing these checkpoint 28mm Sumerians as well, and I've got both. I've got some 15s and I've got the 28s, and you can see the similarities between the two. So that's interesting. And then painting wise, and I don't know if we can see this on my phone, but I've been painting. I'm up to my neck in tartan at the moment. These are
wow.
These are 28mm antediluvian figures and footsore figures. And a few foundry in there. And what I'm doing is I'm doing heavy infantry to go with my Scots, Highland and Islanders to turn them into a feudal Scandinavian. So so this is an included general with a king in the front.
You've resisted the option of going for the super cheapy Fireforged plastic ones, then?
I'm a metal man. I like my metal.
Heavy metal.
And obviously the little LBM flag, of course, has to be done. But I mean, so a bit of tartan in there, and the antediluvian, because they're now doing sort of. They're sort of Scots, Highland and Islanders that are probably closer to feudal Scandinavian, so the early feudal Scandinavian. But
are they the ones who did like a Bannockburn range, or am I getting confused with something? They do. And that was it.
They do some really lovely French as well. I think the French may have been bought or sold off rather to somebody else, but so that's what's keeping me busy. A bit of book writing. Set of rules. I think I said last time the rules are in, the FWC's in with the typesetters, which is always great because I've now had a whole load of feedback from the playtesters that I've got to put in, but that's fine. And then a bit of light reading. I've been reading I mean, Dave will know about this one.
That's the tome. Bloody hell.
I'm a big Richard Morgan fan. I like my sci-fi. So this is Altered Carbon. This is the I think might be his newest one, called Thin Air.
It's a new one. Oh, okay, all right.
Based in Mars, so on Mars rather. I think Dave was a bit huffy about it, but I quite like it. So I think it's
is it another Takeshi Kovacs novel?
No, it's not. It's a completely different one. Yeah. I mean, quite interesting concept. The idea that in the future you're effectively going to be jacked up with code most of the time. So and actually you think about it, and there's some bits in it where you've got I don't know what he calls them, like code bugs. So you can suddenly get bitten, and it's an upgrade. It's quite clever. It's quite a clever way of looking at things.
You can get injected with code.
You get your upgrade by being effectively infected by a genetically modified mosquito. So anyway, there you go. That's the kind of madness I've been up to.
Yes. Okay. Weird. Well, it's funny you mentioned the digital sculpt, because I cracked and bought some museum miniatures stuff to do some very similar to you, the Gala glass. They got sections or whatever they're called. What was that? Is there a way of pronouncing it?
Oh, the Gala glass.
According to Andy, who did some Gaelic when he was young, it's Galaglee.
Oh, Galaglee.
The first time I ever heard it pronounced that way. I've always assumed it was Galagla, but Galaglee apparently is, for some people, the way
that sounds, that sounds a tad camp, and I'm not sure I'd want to talk to a Scotsman in full armour with a big sword and
it just sounds a bit effete to say you're a Galaglee, doesn't it? You're very gleeful about
it. We're gleeful. We're a happy gala.
Heidi hi.
Heidi hi. Here we are. But so I've got those.
Drinking.
Yeah. So I've got those museum ones, and I've undercoated them black, and I'm going to do the dry brush, and it's just that thing of, is the detail going to be deep enough to actually take even the dry brushing on it? And you can see there's some bits where they're sort of hunched over. They've lost it in
right
a little bit, and you just think this could be so much better. And then the flip side, I've been painting up these forged in battle Byzantines that I've just started feeding the cavalry onto the website with a new light box, which is very exciting, because my old one was sort of crap and made out of, I don't know, translucent plastic, and it cost about £5, and it soldiered on for quite a long time, and then it just fell apart because you had to keep folding it down. It's basically a sheet of plastic that was folded into a shape and magnetized or whatever, and when you're folding a sheet of plastic, eventually those joins go, and it just all fell apart at the same time. So I bought this other one that it seemed to be that every single person on eBay was selling the same one, and it comes in a proper little packet, and it pops out, just pops out like that, light in the top, so it's the top, and it's all silvery bits as well. What am I doing? So
I might be able for one of those.
So it's about 15 quid. And I think they do them in a couple of sizes. I got the slightly smaller one because I'm not going to be doing, the enormous stuff. But and it's really good. It's got much better light, and the fact it's all silvery inside, and it's solid, and it doesn't look like it'll fall apart eventually. So I've taken a few more light box shots of these forged in battle ones, which just take the paint so well, particularly contrasty stuff, because they're so deeply carved. And I've got a load of those out, and then I got round, having done the cavalry, I've just been doing some Byzantine light infantry and skirmishers, the javelinmen that you get in a Byzantine army, that I'm not sure there's a purpose for them.
But they're very useful. You need the javelinmen.
Good. Well, I've got 3 of them, and I've got the light foot that go with it as well. And I bought some Malifaux figures after hanging on for years without actually buying any more. Well, only buy one. And I actually bought a box set that it sounds ridiculous, like 4 figures and a pack of cards for like 32 quid. Yeah, I know. And 2 of the figures are tiny. It was the pack of cards is like a tenner. So you kind of go, that's 22 quid. And then there's a measuring stick, and you get the measuring stick and it's cardboard. It's like rock and roll. Come on, put a plastic one in. And but I painted those up because they were sort of needed, because I'm so resistant to this, whatever it is, codex creep, where they bring in new models which are better than the other ones. And I've got enough models and most of the stuff works, but there was just like one particular role in the crew that all the old models I had just didn't do it very well, because they'd all been slightly tweaked or whatever. And it's like, if I've got those two things, it will just be, they're just good at this shit, and they sell them in a box set. So I got them and then put them on table. And then my opponent was like, oh no, they don't do that. And I was like, what? Again, but they're brand new. I've just got them, and they come with a card that has all their stats on it, included. And I'd laminated the cards, and I was like, right, this tells them their abilities and what they do. And he goes, no. And he had it on his iPad, and he's like, no, that's slightly different. And they've been errated already. Oh. And it's like a brand new box set. And I was going, it got errated like last summer or something. And I go, so, which actually made them either not quite as good or slightly better, slightly easier to use. So, but doing 4 steampunk single models was kind of fun to get that done. And I will be able to get them on table once every couple of weeks in my palette cleansing down with much younger people at Bad Moon Cafe on a Tuesday night to do that. And I've now won 2 games in a row, which is like 2 games since I started playing again about 2 years ago or something like that. I've just about got my head around it, which is kind of grand. But
isn't it all set in Venice? I mean, do you have to have loads of nice?
That's Carnival, which I think is the same sort of thing. So it's a very weird setting, but there's steampunk, there's cowboys, there's a
little girl with a teddy bear and all that.
There's girls and teddy bears, there's nightmares, there's eldritch horror, there's swamp monsters, there's gremlins, there's everything in it.
Kind of samurai things, isn't there?
Yeah, there's samurai things. Yep, samurai things. Which I've got some of those. But there's like worldwide international socialism as well. So there's like union. So we're fighting with a union boss who has like loads of stuff about solidarity and for the workers. So I've even got a guy with a banner, which when you look closely at the banner, it's the cover of Billy Bragg's second album. But no one ever looks that closely. Talking with a taxman about poetry. So
you don't know who Billy Bragg is.
No, I'm sure that a lot of the kids don't I play with wouldn't know at all.
No, exactly.
In fact, some of them didn't even know some of the models from when I started collecting about 7 years ago. It was like, what's that one doing? I go, well, this was like a really good one, like when we started. It was all kind of weird. So got that's all done. And then it's just what's going to go next into the painting queue. Will I take these museum ones, which I might do just to kind of blitz them because they're sort of dry brushy. Once I've got these cavalry, or do I do the foot for the Nickephorian infantry, the Scutatoi, or do I do all of these 15mm Mugavars that I'm in 2 minds about whether they're going to be good or not? So I'm not sure I like the figures. I've got some Assyrian chariots to do, but that's for a competition in August, so that's a long way away, or July, or whatever it is, devises. So that's a long way away. So all sorts of stuff to consider. But let's move along. Gordon, what about your prolific painting and refurbishment? Did you do an army just for Burton?
Well,
far from prolific.
I did intend to finish painting all the Indians that we used at Burton, but I couldn't manage them all because I can really only paint for about half an hour because it's just
because you're
crouch over.
Yeah.
So I will probably manage to have the entire army that we take to Villefontaine repainted, refurbished, but the one we took to Burton was a bit scrappy in places.
Are you finding good stuff on eBay at the moment, or is it just
no? I'd say that eBay never really recovered from the pandemic. I'd say that as a marketplace for buying toy soldiers, it really diminished when people stopped going out to post their stuff. I think that was probably one part of it. And also just then probably a generation of people died and their stuff didn't go on to eBay, something like that. I'd say the market is probably half the size, if that, that it was in 2019.
Yeah, because I've got a couple of armies on at the moment, and I've been surprised how few watchers and views and stuff they've got. And when you actually look at, 15mm painted ancients or whatever, there's surprisingly little apart from Heinz figures, really, which just destroys. It could almost be better if they could be swept away out of it, because that seems to.
Well, it's almost like a warehouse that doesn't really sell anything, and stuff goes into it, because the pricing is not really representative of the figures.
No,
it's generally too high, but every so often you come across a really good thing that's just being priced much the same, it's standard rate almost. Yeah. And I bought quite a few of those, and I think they're they don't really require much done to them, if anything.
Yeah.
But there's maybe that's 5% at most would ever enter that category. They get sold, but the rest doesn't seem to move. I don't know how he funds his model.
It's interesting if you've ever been I think he's in Nottingham. I can't remember. I went once, and he's got a big sort of treble garage that's lined with masses and masses of chests of drawers, and they're all of them full of soldiers. Absolutely. And it was worth spending sort of a couple of hours going through it, because there are some, as Gordon says, there are some gems in there, absolute gems. Beautiful painting. I think I bought some Turkmen cavalry that they were priced up at a reasonable price, but the painting was absolutely stunning. So
actually the Heinz figures stuff, because I just skipped, I almost put filters on not to see it, but you're saying that some of it is good value.
What I currently do is I exclude Heinz and a load of other stuff from my eBay searches, but every time he uploads another 1,000, 2,000 sets, I spend 20 minutes going through them just by, you have to do this properly, otherwise eBay will collapse, but you just sort of go to Heinz Figures website, click on the see all, then do it in most recent, and you go down from 118,800 to 116,000 or something like that. And you can go through it really fast, because sometimes there's page after page of 25mm World War II stuff that I don't want. And basically, I try not to see his stuff in between these once every 3 weeks kind of. So that I'll have a quite early look at what's good. And I know that the rest I'll never want to buy, because it's overpriced for being really very ordinary at best.
Yeah. In fact, in some ways, it's surprising that there's that much averagely and badly painted stuff out there. There just seems to be a never-ending stream of it, isn't it?
It's,
or is it just one set?
It's probate work.
No, you're absolutely right. It is probate work. We've lost another colleague player at the club in the last couple of weeks, and it's taken. This is Down End Club. It's taken Down End nearly 2 years to get sort of clear and sorted from the last sort of significant death, if you like, in terms of which was Howard's stuff. And there were some gems in there.
But Howard's stuff.
Yeah, well, no,
it was Howard's stuff. God rest his soul. That would be a great wargamer's name.
It's but it's a classic. We were up for the AGM at the club at the weekend, and one of his friends said, his wife's been up in the loft and found another army. And it's like we thought we cleared just about everything. This is massive. Wars of the Roses, enough for ADLG to do at least three armies, but they're really old figures. In fact, there's some old Mike's models in there. Now, some of those, the Mike's model stuff, people will collect, because you even though Essex produces them, you can't get hold of certain ones. But there's some other stuff in there I've never seen before. Quite nice figures, but that's just the painted. There's another something like nearly 400 figures unpainted War of the Roses. So so I think we're reaching that generational thing where either it's all got to go in the melter, or some poor sod's going to end up having to do the probate work, or the sort of sorting it all out in the wills, I'm afraid.
This means war.
Simon, what have you been painting before? Because we're now on to talking about painting stuff that you will not get rid of until you die, which is a, you know, what's gone into the storage until many years from now. The youngest person here, yeah, congratulations. You're going to have much more use out of this than the rest of us.
So I've got quite a random set of things I've been painting. So at Warfare 2 years ago, Tim, you may have helped me buy a whole bunch of Victrix, plastic Greeks and all that.
Yeah, that's true.
I've finally got around to actually start painting them. So I've got the
shieldy.
You got shields. So you got pike spear, heavy spear, heavy pikeman, and all that. Yeah, so they're all coming along. So I've got the core of a Greek army now with the various options for spear, companions, cataphracts, and all that. But so that's been quite good fun.
Did you use the Victrix pikes, or did you drill them out and put metal ones in?
I went the Victrix pikes because they're all plastic. Because if they break, it's just a matter of just using the glue, and they reseal quite effectively. Yeah. So it's been quite effective. Plus a whole bunch of shield transfers, so they're quite nice. But on things that are non-ADLG, because I've done a few other ADLG armies, but talk about random box sets. So for one of our club members, he found in his shed, he had a whole bunch of War Games Factory Samurai. And War Games Factory ultimately was bought out, or this Samurai range was bought out by Warlord Games and redone for their Samurai range. So he had version 1 of those box sets. So some money was exchanged, and I think 11 boxes of Ashigaru and Samurai may have been purchased by me. So
11 boxes. That's like 400 figures or something. How many in a box?
Yeah, there is that because each box has got 25 figures in them. So and just to make life even more interesting, every single model is at least 6 pieces.
Oh my God.
That's what I found with the same plastics, because I'm not used to picking plastics together. Yeah. It just completely scared the.
Yeah, because the chest is 2 pieces, each armor 2 pieces. Then you got the head, then you got the legs, then you got every weapon's individual as well. Then you've also got swords, backpacks, and all that. So but on the plus side, I've started painting them up, and they do come up quite nicely. So I've been playing. So the ultimate intent of this army is to paint up an ADLG Samurai, early and later Samurai, because why have one? Might as well have 2 armies. But the first focus of them was actually for a skirmish game that's not ADLG. I know, very scary.
Good.
It's a game called Test of Honor.
Okay, yeah, that was Warlord Games for a while, and they've dropped it as well, or they passed it back to the designer or something.
Yeah, so the designer worked for Warlord Games, and then he designed it during his tenure at Warlord Games, and then he decided to go independent. And Warlord Games very kindly said, "Well, the rules only really work with the writer pushing them. Fill your boots. Here's the IP. Go for it." So it's It's a little warband style of game, so you get about it's all purely scenario driven. It's quite light and fluffy, very, very enjoyable. It allows you to emulate all those Japanese samurai movies we've all seen, like Seven Samurai, Band of Ronin, Seven Ronin, whatever like that. And you can get
Richard, maybe this is one for you. Maybe there's like Ninja Weirdos or something like that.
Absolutely, yeah. Who knows?
You can get ninjas,
your ears are pricking up. It's
samurai,
like
you can get Ronin, and so an army normally comprises of maybe 2 samurai and half a dozen or a dozen maximum Ashigaru or Ronin, depending on which army you've gone for, or monks or whatever. So I painted up a whole bunch of them for that as the first off, because they've been quite fun, because then you could focus on 12 models. That's all that. So you can go for the banners and all your stuff. But then just for a sheer bit of fun, so I bought at Selweg back in the day when it was at the race, gym place we went to the north of London a few years ago. So there was a guy who was selling 10mm fantasy, and I bought off him 2 fantasy armies because they're cute and shiny, with the intent to actually base them so we could play Warmaster, because they're all Warmaster fantasy.
Warmaster based, yeah.
But using ADLG, because they use the same frontage, 40 mil. So
there's a lot of people making those 3D printed Warmaster armies now, isn't there? Warmaster compatible ones.
Yeah, because Games Workshop have given up doing the 10 mil armies, and so a whole bunch of people have done the STL files.
Yeah,
they're all slightly tweaked, so they're not IP infringing, all that. But yeah, usually the flavour. So I finally pulled my finger out, and I've now completed this and all that. So I've now completed the various things like I've got Skaven army, which is basically big rats, which is always quite fun. So they've got cool things like a Skaven wheel, so it's like a war wagon.
Teeny tiny. You used to have an enormous one of those, didn't you? Yeah.
Blades and all that. So you've got to have one of those. Then you've got a trebuchet, just from purely gratuitous.
Yeah. A ratty trebuchet.
They call it the warp cannon, which is basically the world's biggest war wagon with a great big gun pointing forwards.
And isn't it like a flamethrower or something, Simon?
Yeah, so there's a whole bunch of other random things, and you've got like a trebuchet with a bell, with a wizard at the back of it saying, "Go forward, my friendly rats. Let's go conquer the world," and all that. So yeah, why would you not want to have one of those? So I've done 3 armies of these. I've got Skaven, Dark Elves, and Dwarves, and all that.
But the question is, do you have 2 copies of the Warmaster rulebook to force down one of our throats so that we can play with your 3 armies?
No, see, most importantly, one of the things you do when you fly back to Australia on too many times is you start thinking, how can I convert Warmaster to use ADLG?
Okay.
Tomorrow night we're actually play testing this is purely just for people in the club just to use their armies that they've got. We're going to actually be using a Warmaster army, but using ADLG mechanics. So I've worked out the points cost, the magic, and all the other stuff, and we'll see how that goes.
It's like
that's
Art de la Master or something like that.
Yeah, ADLG Masters we're calling it.
Masters, that's it. Yeah.
So. Because once you got the frontage worked out, well, that's easy, and it's just a matter of when you actually look at a lot of the troop types, you think of we're thinking this Wheel of Doom thing. Well, that's easy. It's a war wagon, blade, maybe cohesion 5, and elite because it's world cool, but you get one of them. So it's 15 points. Ta-da! We got the dragons, so we're thinking it's like if it's a war machine, it's based off the war wagon unit type. If it's something scary like an elephant a dragon or whatever, it's based off the elephant character troop type. So now that we've got elephant with artillery and armor, you can make the scary big high elf dragon with all the bells and whistles. Yeah, you got one of those. It's 25 points. Well done. It's 10% of your entire army.
Super easy.
And it can't recover. So once you sort of reverse engineer the points cost,
quite easily, then
it seems to carry through. So we'll find out tomorrow night how well it goes. Okay. But it's just an excuse to play something using rules that we like, but using troop types and models like dragons. I've got a Hydra. I've got big rats. I've got a rat with another rat on top of it. I've got hordes of rats, and I've got dwarves and all that stuff. What's not to like?
Okay, interesting one. Good. Well, we will. Well, I think I'm down the club tomorrow night as well. I've got a game against Stan, so I'll have some downtime in between drinks and cigarette breaks, so I can probably wander over and have a look and see how that's going as well, and see some rats on table.
It'd be good to see some photos. Definitely.
Yeah, we'll see if we get some.
I thought the dragon should be a light horse, heavily armored, with artillery ability.
No, it needs incendiary, David.
Very expensive, but it should have a life of 5 lives.
Well, we did that.
Flying around the table, burning everything up, and can't be fucking hit at. So
it can't be fought.
Seriously terrifying. It would be great.
Yeah, so there have been quite a few debates about how you model flying and all the other stuff, but we didn't want the Games Workshop era of, for those of us who started playing that, flying was always this overpowered troop type. So it's like, turn 1, you'd fly high. Turn 2, you drop down, you win the game. Boring. So the most simple mechanic we just said was flying just allows you to cross terrain that you can normally not affect, that would normally affect you. But if you land in it, you're affected as per your base troop type. There you go. So you might have, I've got some harpies, monsters with wings but big swords. Fine. They're medium swordsmen, but they can fly. If they go through bad terrain, they're fine. But if they get caught in the terrain, they're absolutely in trouble. So it allows you just to get that visual without being too cheesy. And that was the ultimate intent was, we want the dragon, we want those various monsters and all that, but not to be too cheesy, but you want the model. So by using the elephant, you get that, it causes a bit of panic, it causes furious charge on infantry, that seems appropriate for a dragon, or whatever it is. And it gives you that flavor of it, but it can't recover hits. So a couple of shots by artillery, it's going to be pretty wounded. Bring it on. So it just gives you that little bit of a flavor. And we've pulled a couple of the ideas from Renaissance out of it. So from ADLG, we've got the idea of caracol and a couple of other things, because in some of the armies they had that nominal concept being fantasy. And it seems like quite a good mashup. So we'll find out tomorrow, and there'll be lots of photographs.
Yeah, we'll look forward to seeing it.
Sounds good. Look forward to it.
Yeah, excellent. Right. Well, look, I think that's that might be Richard signing off as well. So that's I think we've all gone round and done the painting and bits, and we talked quite a bit about gaming as well, which is always nice. So we will end this segment, and we will wave goodbye to Richard making an early break as well. Good night, Richard, but we will carry on and be back.
This means war.
And we're back, and we're down to 5 now, which Richard's had to escape off. But we can quickly run through a couple of the other competitions that we've done before we get on to a long-lost segment of Andy's quiz making a return. But before we do that, I just completely forgotten one of my painting highlights is sort of in Malifaux, there's one thing I didn't want to buy a bloody box set for was one model, because I got all the other models in it anyway. Blah, blah, blah. So I wanted this thing called a wind golem. So I looked on Etsy for 3D prints of stuff that could be a wind monster malarkey, and I found one that looked really, really cool. But when you're trying to order a figure, they've kind of got a scale, and like a man is like 32 mil or 28 mil or whatever, and that's right. But a wind monster isn't really it doesn't really come as a thing with a scale. So I ordered one, and it's really quite cool and quite impressive and big, but compared to a little, it's quite substantial, really. So so the golem figures are bigger than normal people for sure, but this one dwarfs all of the other different types of golems that I've got. So I'm just hoping that it doesn't actually fall over at all, because it could
damage other
3D
figures.
print. It could just absolutely, I think it could damage bloody anything. It's like quite a substantial beastie of thing.
And this isn't one of these things where you're likely to be thrown out of the union for playing something that's not.
No,
okay,
it's not
fine.
that game. It's the whole game system that everybody in it has, apart from me, is a refugee from Games Workshop. So they're all like, no, we don't do that sort of thing in Malifaux. Not really. So it's all cool and all good. So
good for them.
Yeah, good for them. Rock and roll. So yes, we're talking about the competition. So the first one was, I think, me and you, Gordon, going down to Plymouth.
Yes, we did.
After Alicante.
And to play with big toys.
Big toys, yeah. It was a Roman theme that I think I'd come up with, because we had an Alexandrian sort of theme last year in Plymouth, so it kind of moved on. And I took the 28 mil Foundry Roman army that I bought mostly from you, Mark, was it?
Yeah.
The year before, sometime. picked up and finally got them on table, and then realised that this theme I'd set involved cataphracts, and so the Republican Triumvirate Roman army has quite an Achilles heel when it comes to cataphracts, and in that they're all expensive because they're all got compulsory armour, and that armour has no value against cataphracts who have very heavy armour and impact. So I think I had I think I won 2 and lost 2, and where I lost, I mostly lost because of cataphracts running me over, and where I won it was because I managed to avoid that sort of fate, and ended up winning a Roman civil war against Jason actually, and his early Imperial Romans with my triumvirates, where my numbers beat his other thing. But I got 28 mil Romans on table. I got 8, 9, was it no 10 bases of them on table in the army, which is pretty solid. And bit of crappy cavalry. I got an elephant on table, a Victrix elephant. So it looked very, very jolly indeed. And I think the battle reports, I'm probably doing the videos quite soon for it. And I don't think I've done them. By God, I've done them already, I think.
You have?
I have, yes, they're out. It's I'm just trying to remember too much video stuff recently. So they were blitzed through, and I got some great pictures of Tony's wonderful painting of his Greco-Bactrian army in particular. That was kind of one of the highlights. And then there was a 3D printed Parthian army from Harry that he'd done that looked really, really nice. They were lovely figures. And he paints stuff up really, really quickly as well. But that was that the red copper stuff? Or Scroffer?
Copper, I don't think.
Red copper and Scroffer or whatever, they're 2 different makers.
Yeah, no, maybe it's the Scroffer one, the Parthians, but they were great. They were really nice
they're beautifully incised. I mean, they're not cut, of course. That's just how they're molded. But I mean, they take detail very, very well and easily.
Yeah. They just kind of waxed them out pretty quickly on the printer. So that was really, really impressive. And Gordon, what about you? What was your?
I took Nobate because I had a load of old garrison camel fracts that I'd never used, and I just wanted to be on the table. So they went as ordinary medium camelry, or impetuous camelry, and loads of other 40, 45, maybe 50-year-old figures. I had intended to paint them up in a real old school effect. Some of them were painted, some of them weren't painted at all. I didn't get very far. I mean, everything got painted and in a certain amount of detail, but nowhere near as much as I wanted to. But it was novel to carry, probably for the first time in 10 years, an entirely metal 25 mil army.
Wow.
Genuine 25, not your modern 30 something.
No. There was a lot of it, I imagine, as well.
Oh, yeah. There was 29 units, I think. And it did quite well. I mean, we'd done better if it avoided 1 draw, but its camels were very effective.
Yeah.
They were a nightmare to control, but all the games were really enjoyable because the camels were just so mad.
Yeah.
Almost everything that was mounted was impetuous. It was great.
Oh my God. So what did you run into or try to run over?
Harry's Parthians, which I think I lost to. I'm not sure if I lost to it or whether it's a draw. I can't remember. My first game against what's his name? Will come to me in a moment. Paul. He had Spanish, and that was a draw. I mean, it just got kind of dragged out. And then 2 wins against early Republicans. That's Jason's, and then and Tony's really beautiful Greek.
Oh, you beat that one. Yeah.
There's one thing that cataphracts can't stand up to is just a bunch of camels.
Yeah, no, they could definitely stand up to the rest of my army, and his pikemen went through mine like my legions like a dose of salts as well. It was just quite frightening, quite frightening. So that was a good one. And then we all did Bournemouth, I think, didn't it?
Yep.
Did you do Bournemouth? No, Simon missed Bournemouth. That was it. So Dave, you were playing Tiddly Little Toys in Bournemouth.
I played 15mm, and carrying on the theme. If you were paying attention at the very beginning of the podcast, reversing it, I went to Thessaloniki
Really?
Last year, so I decided I'd take Alexandria Macedonian to beachhead.
You took the same army to 2 events in a row.
No. I took Alexandria Macedonian to beachhead, which is completely different to Alexandria Alex Mack. No, Alexander the Great I took to beachhead.
Right,
so I had the elephant. I had the elephants basically.
Okay.
So I played Steve Hammond's Seleucid army in the first game. I did look this up earlier on this evening to make sure I remember. So I stuffed Steve Hammond's Seleucid army, mainly because I don't think Steve plays as often as we do.
No, Steve's not played for a while. He's not been well, so that's a tough one, isn't it? Yeah.
But we had a good chat about his expedition deaths. And then I beat up Ian Sewell's camel nonsense, although his camel nonsense was flattening my my companion command. My little companion command got stuffed, but my general then fought back and then started killing all his camels by hitting them with flank and things, which was really funky. Then now I'm letting down. I played someone else.
I know who you played.
I played you on Sunday morning, which was a bloody nightmare because you dismounted all your camels as impetuous medium foot with elites because I had an elephant, and you went through the terrain and you were bigger medium foot command than I had. That was the reason I didn't win the competition. No, I played Steve Nice on Saturday afternoon and lost to him.
Okay. All right. So that was a kind of a mixed thing, and then you ended up sort of coming somewhere in the table then.
Something like that. It was good. It was great. I liked it. Shared a lot. It's good competition.
Yeah. And we had a pretty decent curry on Saturday night as well, actually. I thought.
I think they went out to hunt for all the ingredients for quite a long time.
Yes. Yeah, we did get a few beers in beforehand, didn't it?
I went to bed.
Yeah. You were a little bit under the weather, weren't you, as well?
And the goat and tricycle was good on Friday night as well.
I
particularly like the on-draft alcohol-free IPA beer, which I've never come across.
They had a couple of different ones, didn't they? That was really interesting.
Completely alcohol-free, which was great.
Yeah. No, that was a kind of intriguing one. So, and then Gordon, what about you mentioned that your beating of Dave, but what did you take?
I brought one of the Sahelian empires, specifically Kanem Bornu, with lots of little camels. Well, actually not a lot, but enough little camels. But it's one of the Sahelian empires that can, in its later period, can have heavy spearmen, medium spearmen, stuff like that, rather than just medium swordsmen. So it can stand against, the difficult opponents that you expect to meet at a competition. Many of those North African armies really only work in quite tight themes, but this one, managed quite a variety. I mean, it could take on Alexandrians and beat them.
Wow.
You've got Cataracts as well, haven't you, Gordon?
I chose not to bring the Cataracts. I had 2 heavy lancers who can be elite. They also dismounted. I can't remember what I did.
It was the double ability of the camels, because they dismount as medium foot. It's the Tuareg ally, which dismounts as elite medium foot impetuous.
Yeah. They're powerful.
Yeah. That's kind of in a period where you think you're going to get elephants. That's probably quite a cute thing to do.
Oh, and I also brought some javelinmen to deal with elephants.
Okay.
And there's one person who was watching one of our games said, "You spent far too much time maneuvering, trying to get that elite javelinman in to kill an elephant. You could have done other things in that time. Admittedly, you won and you killed the elephant with the javelinman, but you could have done it more efficiently."
Right. It's okay. Well, that's detailed critique, isn't it, really?
Yeah, that was kind of him, Gordon, wasn't it, really? Yes, exactly.
Someone had invested quite a lot of time watching your game in order to point out that you could have won better.
Yeah, I was very pleased about that feedback.
Yeah. It wasn't an ex-carpet salesman, was it?
No, he was playing in the big toys, so I was embraced with his views.
Speaking of the devil.
Yes.
Speaking of the big toys.
Yeah, I did play him, and so I started off by playing Will Morris with Carthaginians, and I was using early successor because I've got 6 big pikeman units, and I've never put all 6 on table before. So it was basically 6 pikemen, 2 elephants, a load of Thracians, and a handful of impact cavalry. That was it, and it was just like, I'm going to put 6 pikemen and 2 elephants into your face and some Thracians, and we'll see how that works. And that was the entire strategy. Against Carthaginians, that should have probably been all right because they have spearmen and they have poor quality elephants, and their cavalry are not that great. But they had some Spaniards and they had some elite Etruscans or something, Campanians, are they? Impact medium foot.
I played Will, and yes, I mean the thing about that army, it's huge.
It was, wasn't it? Yeah,
vast. I mean, it's one of those because I think he had. You're right. He did have some better quality spearmen. So maybe they were Etruscan or something similar, or Oscans or something, and the elephant,
possibly,
as well, and that big chunk of Gauls. Is it? I think they were impetuous, heavy foot or something. So
something like that. Yeah, and so that was a defeat, 87-23. And then I played Don. We got a good bit of carpet down. That was lovely. I think I might have ended up buying it. I don't know what went wrong there. But he just starts talking, and you end up walking away with carpet. Yeah, it was a bargain. It was a deep shag pile.
And it comes with
underlay. It comes with special underlay.
It was
Country underlay.
Yeah, it was probably Italian made, I suspect, in relation to the army.
What it was told. Yeah, in fact, yes, he was using Common Italian, which was an army with the 2 of the funky war wagons. The interesting War Wagon X, and they're supposed to be specialist anti-elephant troops. And I think they did actually get into my elephants and do them some damage, which is kind of careless if you actually do charge these static things. They do end up fighting your elephants. But my pikeman kind of rolled over him, and the other people kind of chopped them up. And then I played Richard, who had Pyrrhic, which is kind of similar to mine, but I think it also had some decent kind of pokey impact foot, and that beat me quite even more comprehensively. Actually, I think I was struggling. I think 19-91, so that's quite a hefty defeat there. And then on Sunday, I think this is a repeat of. I played Kevin Perry on Sunday the previous year as well. This year he had Classical Indians, which was one of the number of 3D printed armies there as well, which again looked very, very nice. Might be Scrofer again with those figures. And I think, Dave, as you were saying before about these sort of shooting armies, as long as your skirmishers can keep the shooting at bay, the pikemen just go in behind the skirmishers and then get in amongst stuff and really, really chew it up. And I think I actually did a flank march with the companions on that one that turned up really, really early. And that really pinned him into a corner, and he was really struggling to recover from that. So that was a victory, although I did take a fair few losses. And then, unfortunately, Mark, in the last game, we can talk about your battles in reverse. And your wall of Hussites became kind of a wall of broken sticks, really, didn't they?
Yeah, it did. It was one of those ones which is interesting because all my other games had ended up with draws, and either marginally in my favour or marginally in my opponent's. And it's not that any of them were any less aggressive than you were. I just think it was the way things worked. I managed to. Against you, my classic mistake was I tried to jam everything into my deployment area, which was too small because there was too much terrain on the table, which I take full responsibility for.
You put it all out.
And when I should have flank marched, I should have put those knights on a flank march on that flank, on the open flank, as it were.
Because you dismounted them, didn't you? I think.
Yeah. I dismounted them, and then when your general, I don't want to spoil any battle report.
No, it's fine. It'll be useful to remind me for when I do it.
No one reads them anyway, Mark. No one reads the battle reports anyway. No.
Oh, really? Oh, well, that's all right. Well, I mean, wasn't there a sort of general on general combat or something?
And you managed to
you managed to 6-1 the general, and then throw a bloody 1. So you know,
the Lancers charged into the dismounted foot knights and then took the general out in one go, didn't they? That was but boom, straight through, heroics.
A good move, and my artillery, which had done exceptionally well in all my other games, managed to fail to hit any of your stuff at all, I think. So
I think it might have done 1 damage on one damage point. They rushed it super quick and then got into combat whenever they could.
But it was a good game. I mean, I think you were far more aggressive than any of my other opponents. I mean, I said earlier they were aggressive. They were. I think you managed to concentrate. The wagons did better than I expected.
Yes, they did actually.
Yeah, and I think so. It's because 2 of them, both the gun wagons, have got included generals in them, and that makes a huge difference. And against you avoided all my fortifications, which was until the very end, which was the right thing to do. Whereas a lot of other people threw everything over the front of the fortifications, which is fine. The infantry ignore them. Of course, elephants don't. And they became a real cropper because, of course, elephants. Not only do elephants fight at -2, I think it is across
the impact as well, don't they?
They're just useless. They lose their impact. They lose everything. To be expected, actually, with elephants.
It's kind of weird because with Alicante, that means that's 2 tournaments out of 3 in which my final game has been against Hussites, which I'm not sure I can ever remember playing a Hussite army before, like ever, which is kind of weird. It's done twice in 3.
For me, as you know, it was a sort of labour of love. I've had this
astonishing army, astonishing.
For a long time. My eyes cannot paint in the way that they used to, and there's but I did manage to get a couple of nice units done up, a couple of Prague spearmen. But it was good. I mean, I played a Ghaznavid to start with, which was Phil. It was a draw. Horse archer armies versus wagons is never very good. He got my camp, and then threw a unit of light cavalry impact into the rear of heavy artillery, and the artillery 6-1'd him. And at that point, I think we come to the end at that point. Played a Macedonian, which was, I can't remember the name of the chap. He hadn't played for a while. Who flank marched all 6 of his pikemen with an included elite general, and they came on, and oh boy, did that cause me trouble. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, and it has supporting light infantry as well.
That might be getting. Isn't it? Is there like some rule that you can only flank march 40% of your army or something?
No, I don't think there is.
Your commander in chief doesn't go.
That's right.
And he didn't. Theoretically, 90% of it, if you were mad enough. I mean, at Alicante. My last game, I was playing someone with
40% of your army in an ally or something.
Oh yeah, no, you can only have 80 to 85 points in a 200 game as an ally, but it doesn't stop you. It doesn't stop you with a flank march. Oh no! Okay. So this was terrifying. I mean, and of course, I don't have enough troops that can get out from behind the wagons to damage the.
You don't have enough troops that can move.
Oh no! Well, the thing is, I've got 8 heavy infantry. Well, sorry, no, 6 heavy infantry and 4. Impetuous levy that move through the wagons with no penalty, so they can just suddenly jump, as they did against Will's Carthaginians, leapt out, and then started fighting, the stuff. So so that was interesting. Again, another draw. I played. I'm just looking at my list here. Kev's Classical Indian. I managed to kill a couple of elephants with artillery fire. They never got near. And I keep on forgetting, of course, you get +1 for shooting at elephants with your artillery, but even then I managed to do okay. And then, of course, Will's Carthaginian, and then finally yourself. I think the composition of the army was wrong. I think I should have played it a lot more aggressively, and I didn't.
Having played against them twice, and I just it's starting to niggle me that there is an army in there.
There is.
I think there is. I'm just not quite sure what it is.
Having studied the Hussites at university, I have to say Mark's Hussite army is possibly the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
No, I think that's absolutely right.
I really do admire it.
Thank you.
Particularly the artillery and the variation is just stunning. Stunning to look at.
Well, I made the decision also because, as you know from the last podcast, I have so many wagons to actually convert.
And I
some
still
of them
need
into
to pay you for
mobile.
those ones. I still need to
Oh,
pay
that's
you for
fine.
those ones as well.
At some point, you and Simon, if you've handed over them to Simon, but making the decision to actually convert them into moving wagons, and some of them as in
static as well.
That's it. Yeah, I mean, it was good to do that. So. But they come out probably once every 10 years, Tim. You know, Gordon talking about carrying heavy armies. You know, that is a heavy army to carry. It's all metal. It's all in 28s. But it was good fun. It was nice. It was a great themed competition. Thoroughly enjoyable.
It inspired me to undercoat the other two wagons, the plastic 3D print that we got from Alicante, and then a metal one that I got from museum in their sale, because they're so cheap in their sale.
They are, and they're really lovely wagons. Historically, they look really good. Yeah.
And the thing is, with the 3D print and the museum one, they're completely different scales. Utterly different things.
But it's an interesting thing. You know, wagons are probably reasonably. You know, these were converted peasant wagons, so they're probably all sorts of sizes. So
but these are definitely all sorts of sizes. But I think we'll have to have a think about what the way is to actually use that army, because there's got to be a way to do it. I just have
many variations of options, I think.
It could be all
I think that might be one of its problems, Dave. I think, because there is the option where you can buy all the knights and all the heavy cavalry.
Polish ally, blah, 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 blah.
Oh yeah, the Polish ally, exactly. I mean, or you can go mad and use them as part of the Lithuanian, which is the weirdest army ever. There's a Lithuanian where you can have Hussite wagons, allied Teutonic knights, and hordes of light cavalry.
I used to use that in DBM. It was a rubbish army in DBM, but it worked for me. And
I would never work with Teutonic knights. That's just no.
Well, is it the slightly right wing tendencies there, Dave?
Yeah.
He didn't get that, but there we are.
It was this really weird army that I did really, really well with it against all comers for ages, and people started trying to use my list and going, this doesn't work. And I go, I don't know why. It just all the bits kind of were greater than the sum of the parts. It was really, really strange.
I think it's in the list that you're allowed to use for Helsinki. So it's it might be interesting to see if anybody uses
that. Might be I might still be tempted to use the Russians for that one, but we'll see. So all right. Well, look, I think in if we talked about unwilling or unpolitically correct allies, that may well actually move us swiftly on to the return of a much loved, I was going to say a much loved feature, but possibly a much loved theme tune, as we get into Andy's quiz.
Andy's quiz, right.
So it's a long time since we've all heard any French techno, and possibly it should be longer. But questions, that's it. So Andy sadly cannot be with us this week, but he promises to return in future. But from whichever world he has dialed this in from after his ignominy of a whole bevy of defeats in Burton at the weekend, he's sent me some quiz questions on the theme of hesitant allies. And which is inspired by some debacle of Burton, apparently, in which him and Paul played Mick Hood and Steve Tong, who had two unreliable generals in their 300-point army, both of which went hesitant, and that had happened in both of their games the previous day as well, which is pretty spectacular. It's got to be said. So, and in Paul's game and Andy's game, their allied general went hesitant in their first two games as well. So there's a lot of hesitancy going on, and maybe that's his hesitancy to appear again. So, and Mark, because you may just have listened to this, we just go, ooh, those are funny things, and could be this, could be that, but we don't give the answers because they come next week, and we let the listeners on tenterhooks So I'm just flagging that up to you, really, in case, because obviously you're an avid listener and you knew that already.
We know it.
Yeah, unless we know it. So 3 questions about dodgy allies. First one, which nation was described by its ally as being like shackled to a corpse? Have you had an ally that feels like you're shackled to a corpse? Well, if you do, that's that could be anyone. We're not even saying which. We could have a clue about the war there. Anybody want a clue about which era?
Gordon knows.
No, we won't.
No, I'm not going to kind of give a clue. It might be too
straightforward. Okay, all right then. Number two. In which Japanese battle did one commander order his troops to fire on their, in inverted commas, allies, in order to, in inverted commas, persuade them to make good on their promise to change sides? Simon, you might be an expert on that one. You can probably do that in 1-to-1 scale now. And thirdly, then who was it in the Wars of the Roses? Dave, is that you? Are you painting up that army?
We know.
Yes, there you go. Who was known as the Prince of the Turncoats?
Is this the Battle of Bosworth?
It could be. It's in the Wars of the Roses, and there was somebody who was known as the Prince of the Turncoats. So
filthy fucking Yorkshireman.
Oh, it's the bloody Yorkshireman, isn't it? Really, it's got to be Yorkshireman. So, right. We will return next time with answers to these questions, which may well be delivered by Andy himself.
Ooh.
Well, that music's wonderful, isn't it? To have that back again. And a quick, I've actually already got notes of corrections. Look at this. This is it's like we're running the Guardian podcast now, isn't it? It's corrections. It was Chris Tong, not Steve Tong, who was playing with Mick Hood. So if your name's Chris Tong, rather than Steve Tong, sorry about that. But we do have answers to previous questions from beyond the mists of time. So, as allegedly, or according to Andy's notes, the last time that techno music featured on this podcast was in March 2023.
Wow.
I think we all, how many of us had hair then? That's like getting on that one. So these ones, you can have a punt at the questions because you probably forgot them. So which head of state in World War II was also an officer in the Ottoman Navy in World War One?
I haven't got a clue.
It's Dönitz from the famous sketch about Heil Dönitz, please. Dönitz. Yeah. He was in the Ottoman Navy.
What?
So allegedly so. Then, oh yes, the quiz was about pond dwellers, so they must have been in ponds. And then the second one is the poem whose first line is "The boy stood on the burning deck," relates to a naval battle in the Med, in the pond. Who commanded the winners in the battle in which the boy stood upon the burning deck?
Oh, it's not.
Was it Nelson, and was it the Battle of the Nile?
It was Nelson. Mark's got it. Well, hey. And also anybody who can remember that from March 2023, congratulations if you've been waiting all this time. My God. And then finally in the pond, what 1st century emperor of Rome was executed after he was found hiding in a dog kennel? Maybe that's the Pound or the Hound, I don't know. He was found hiding in a dog kennel.
Got to be Nero.
Was he executed though? Didn't he go on to open the chain of cafes?
Suicide, didn't he? Got his slave to bump him off.
Okay.
It's probably one of the ones that gets killed by their Praetorian guards, but that could be any of them, couldn't it? Really?
Sorry, what century? What century?
1st century. Because all the bad stuff happened in the 3rd century, didn't it? The century of chaos. Apparently, Vitellius.
Oh well, there you go. Yeah.
So actually, no wonder we gave people
one of the 3 emperors of the 1 month or whatever. Yeah,
okay. So look, it's a good job we gave people 2 years to work that out, really, because they looked like they were quite hard question. So for the final time this week, let's hit some French techno.
Question, comment les voir? Question, le trou est sans fond. Question, la légende le dit. Question, elle dit aussi. Question, c'est une maladie. Question.
Oh, that's enough of that then. Good. So we're kind of running towards the end of this. Wrapping up quickly then. What have we got coming up? Is there stuff that's happening imminently? Are we getting almost into choosing army lists for roll call, or is there competitions before that? Is there one day as before it?
I don't know about Britain, but I know that I've got competitions before that. I've got Pamplona, which at least Dave's going to.
Not this day.
The other day. Dave's going to.
Oh, in that case, in case I'm the only one of this group going. And then a week after that, I will go on the road for to connect the two. There's a doubles competition in Villefontaine near Lyon, which Dave and I will reassemble for, having made completely different routes through northern Spain and southern France to get to it.
Excellent.
And then I think it is roll call.
Ooh. Okay.
Yeah, roll call's the next thing.
I must get my entry in for roll call. I haven't done that yet.
Roll call. Definitely should, because we're pretty full on that one. I think we've got 2 spaces in. Well, we've got an even number of players at the moment at 25 mil, and an odd number of players in 15s. We've got
I can do either, and I'm happy to do either. So if I
jump in the 15s,
I'll even up in 15s.
We can kind of draw a line on it. And I think it's just for anybody who might be listening. The reminder is it's armies in Persia. So the list restrictions. There's a couple of armies where we've kind of explicitly said you can't use European knights or something like that, I think, but it's probably just an underlining to say there's a general restriction of be adults, it's armies in Persia. So if you're using some army that also had allies from South America in 1 year or something, no, that'll get sent back. We're not putting explicit list restrictions on every bloody ally, but they've got to be credible in Persia.
Yeah, you're being historically quite broad, aren't you? Because you're allowing things broad, you're allowing Tibetans, for example. So,
well, that's justified because the Tibetan Empire stretched into what is currently part of Iran at the time, and they did fight.
Fair enough. I bow to your greater knowledge and judgment there, Gordon. Yeah.
I think maybe Gordon came up with the themes for that.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. In that case, I will not challenge.
No, I think it's an excellent theme in terms of getting Arabs on the table without knights, etc. Whilst leaving some interesting combination things in there.
Yeah.
And it's even got the Romans as well, hasn't it? It's got a couple of Roman armies at the beginning, which will be interesting for the.
You've got Palmyrans and you've got Byzantines. So in
fact, I've been listening because I've been doing some driving up and down the last few days. I drove up to Wolverhampton yesterday to watch the mighty Fulham win 2-0 away and have a very cheap pie. But I've started listening to a podcast called The Ancients, which is one of the history hit ones. And there's a couple of ropey ones, but there's some really, really good ones on I've listened to one on the way back on the Sassanids. So it was sort of should have been the first of many, but I don't think they've done a second one yet. And there was a Zenobia one that was interesting, and a one on Parthians, which was great. And then a kind of a patchy one in which they got like a historical author to do one about the Roman army. And I was like, yeah, I've read more than you, and you've written historical novels about this. It was a bit kind of patchy, but I thought that was a really nice, a good podcast and pretty wargamer friendly. It wasn't too much sort of social history about it. Interesting stuff on the Scythians and the Thracians as well. It was quite a lot of contests. So that was a kind of a nice thing. I don't know if anybody else has picked any other good bits and pieces up over the last few weeks.
No, that. Very good. It's very good. Very good.
Yeah. Any new painting? Any new toys to make things out of? Any new clippers or hobby supplies that you've got floating around? Still no. Just a word of
no.
blanks.
Your contrast paints on your suggestion, but I haven't used them yet.
Oh, you've not used them yet. Oh, okay then. Yeah, we'll see how that works. And all right then. Well, it looks like we've managed to get.
I did purchase one of the latest Hellion books, which is the one on sort of Burmese armies from and some Southeast Asian armies from about 1380 by Turnbull, and it's very good. It's really interesting, but it's more your late medieval armies. It's sort of from about 1380 through to 1700. So just a bit of Simon's era in there as well. This is elephants with guns. So it's
elephants with guns. That's
elephants with guns. Yeah.
That sounds like a Warmaster army, doesn't it? Elephants with guns.
Definitely.
These are very good.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Sounds excellent. And then games coming up. I think I'm playing Stan tomorrow night. Anybody want a game in the afternoon? Or nobody's down. And Simon, are we playing next? True. Are we playing next week, Simon? Are we on? We're on Monday night, I think, aren't we? Something like that.
Possibly.
I haven't found an opponent for Monday.
Oh, there could be a fight.
We're doing Monday, Tim.
We're doing Monday. We're good. Excellent. Well, let's maybe get some tanks out or something for that one.
Can I use my Parthians, Gordon, in this Casbah theme, or are they too early?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're allowed because I think we ran it from the. Did we run it from the Parthians? Yes. Yeah, I think they may be sort of first in the list. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll check.
For the good reason that they had Roman opponents who invaded to lose.
Well,
so yeah.
Well, that's what I was thinking, and I was thinking if you've got sort of other stuff. I mean, I just sort of trying not to sort of have to spend any time because I'm in the middle of painting anything at the moment, particularly. So yeah. Okay, I'll have a look. Brilliant.
Good.
Count me in. Excellent. I'll fill that last space.
Excellent. Well, go on to the BHS
process of
website.
Signing up myself.
Oh, you're signing up yourself. You're doing it first.
Well, I just whilst we were talking, I scrolled through the thing on the forum to see if my name was there as an attendee, and it wasn't. So it looks like.
Is that good? Well, Mark, you can enter the 28mm, or I can add some extra entries to the other one.
Well, if you've got space in the 28s, I can do a 28.
Well, we've got 2 spaces at the moment, so it just relies on somebody else turning up or somebody else flipping over.
We'll talk about accommodation. You don't need to stay overnight in bloody village in Milton Keynes.
Yeah, but hang on a second. If I've got to go into big London, I'm not sure about that. So it's a bit dodgy, Dave.
We can work something out.
We'll sort something out. Okay, but no, either way, Tim, I'm happy. I'll do one or other. Not.
Well, I'll go into the 28mm period. Hopefully, somebody else will come in for that. Otherwise, we can juggle it into the 15s. It's still an extra table, whichever way it works. All good. Yeah,
I'm happy with either. I've got armies for both.
Brilliant. All right. And on that note of advertising, we shall leave you go. Yes, and we'll go away and we'll all listen to the Ancients podcast if we can, and see if we can find some good ones and learn about all these armies in Persia ready for roll call.
Excellent.
All right.
Cheers, then.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. Catch you soon. Bye.
Yeah. All right.
Well, it's been a long time since we've had any French techno, but and that's probably more than enough.
I don't think we heard that, Tim. We didn't hear the French techno. I didn't, anyway.
You don't hear it. I edited it.
You weren't paying attention.
This is the way this works. Oh, you can't get the staff these days, can you? My God. Let's try again.
This means war.